Knowing is cheap, but embodiment, it costs something. But it is worth every bit of the price. You already know what to do, you just haven't become the person who does it yet. You've read the books, you've hired the coach, you've listened to the podcasts, including mine. So why do you still feel stuck? And me too, still feeling stuck sometimes, because knowing better doesn't mean we're actually doing better. It's more of an invitation. I'm stoked to be here. It's George. If you don't know me, welcome, but I'm really grateful that you are here. This episode feels like a call out of myself, but also an invitation for all of us because it's not a strategy download. It's a wake up call for you, for me, for any entrepreneur who ever feels like they're caught in a loop, knowing exactly what to do, but not doing it. Kind of like when I'm like, oh, I want the body of my dreams, but I eat the chocolate cake anyways. And so if this is your first time joining this show, welcome to the Mind of George show. This is where we go deep, not just into marketing and business, but into actually diving into what it takes to build something that lasts without losing yourself in the process. You're in the right place. Marketing, messaging, mindset, customer journey. That's what we play with here. And in this episode, I'm unpacking what I call the knowing trap. It's that painful gap between the awareness that we have and the action that we take. We'll talk about how to break out of the shame spiral, the identity illusions we cling to, and the truth about why so many of us stall right before the breakthrough. So my intention is that you'll walk away with reflection questions, a 3-part framework, and one action step that you can take today to move forward, and not just in your business, but also in your life. And in this episode, this is from my experience, my knowledge, but I also reference some real life superheroes that I love. Real life stories, client examples, some biblical undertones, as well as people that I referenced in prior episodes, the hero's journey, just to tie it all together so that we can take action. But this episode matters so much because most entrepreneurs are not failing from a lack of knowledge. All of us have access to the same books, the same videos. So what's the difference? It's that the ones that don't get the results are stuck in a spiral of almost, right? Almost launching, almost starting, almost healing, almost leading. And that almost zone, it will eat your dreams alive. So this is about becoming the person who doesn't just know, but also acts. So we dive into the 3-part pattern that keeps you stuck: awareness, avoidance, and action that never comes. Why your identity will always fight your next level until you surrender it. And the single question that will help you choose embodiment over information. So if you're tired of studying change, or truthfully was like me and was addicted to studying change, and you're actually ready to become it, this one's for you. So let's get into the show. You already know the answer. You've read the books, you've listened to the podcasts, you've hired the coach, you've endlessly ended up in a YouTube short scroll watching the videos on the same topic. And yet, when we do all those things, why are we still stuck in the same loop or the same situation? Because knowing better doesn't mean that we're actually doing better. And so this episode, it's for me. It might be for you too, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, which you are or want to be. But if you've ever been stuck or are currently stuck in the shame spiral, the stagnation trap, that place that I'm describing where we are aware of our patterns. We know we're ignoring the gym. We know we're not replying to that email. We know we're not sending that invoice. We know all of these different things, but yet we're still repeating the same patterns. And the truth is, and like I said, this one's for me, we don't need more strategy. What we actually need is we need the clarity, the confidence, and the courage to become what we already know. I didn't say to learn more. I said to actually become what we already know. And the reason I am doing this episode is this feels like the current season of my life, as well as so many people I care about and so many people I coach. And the first thing I want to throw out there is this is not a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. Our awareness of these patterns, our awareness of these gaps is actually the invitation or the workout that we've been prescribed to get to the next level. And I wanted to talk about it personally because there are things here that I'm still actively doing. And for those that have followed me long enough, you also know that, 2.5, 3 years ago, I weighed 100 pounds more. And I had done that 100-pound roller coaster up and down 4 times. Now think about that in the lens of business. Hit a revenue, lose the revenue. Have 10 clients, get back down to 5. Have 10, get back down to 5, but never break through. You can take the example of my weight and you can apply it to any single area of our business. Or maybe I was posting consistently on social media every single day for 365 days. And I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And then I stopped and then I yo-yoed and teetered in and out. It's all the same example. But then now it's not that I'd magically lost 100 pounds. And it's not that prior to, I didn't know what to do. I knew what to do. I knew how to eat. I knew how to train. So I wasn't lacking any more knowledge. Yes, was I convinced that there were more shortcuts? Yes, was I watching YouTube videos and trainers and supplements and like, there has to be an easier way? Did I even convince myself that I was like, well, this is just how I'm going to be. My body's so damaged over the years, I can't lose any more weight. I did that too. And you know what? All of it was wrong. It wasn't that I was lacking the knowledge. It's that I was genuinely lacking the confidence and the courage to actually be committed and to become the person to not weigh 100 pounds heavier. Or maybe for you, it's to become the person that sends an email every week or becomes the person that shows up consistently on social media, regardless of how you feel. And so the reason this happens is we all get stuck in what's called the knowing trap. Knowledge does not equal embodiment. And embodiment is one of those words that I use, but I also sometimes get turned off when I use it and when other people use it. But that's my own invitation. But what do I mean by embodiment? Embodiment is really just the definition, in my opinion, of executing consistently the things that we know. So it's not doing things, it's actually being them. Right? I can go execute a task and I can have a bad mindset about it. I can be really sad about it. I can beat myself up about it. Or I can execute that same task and have a different perspective and say, I'm excited. I'm doing this. This is earning my future. I'm going to keep practicing this regardless of how I feel. That's what embodiment is. And so knowledge does not equal embodiment. And when we become aware of things, like, oh, my business would be better if I actually made more reels, or my business would be better if I took over writing my emails again, or my business would be better if I spent some more time connecting with people. Those awarenesses that we have don't actually equal action. They're just an awareness. And we have to understand that knowing more is actually a trap. The truth should be embodying more or executing more is the real path that we're all after. And I don't think at this point in my life and this point in my career and doing this for, 20 something years, that there is really ever a finish line. But I know for me, I fall into the knowing trap thinking that there is. And it's not that I don't know in my heart, like the only time I'm done is when I retire. It's that I try to convince myself in my brain because I'm resisting the responsibility. I'm resisting the courage. And sometimes it's easier to doom scroll on YouTube or watch way too much golf or play on Netflix than it is to actually pause it, go for a walk and hit my steps, or pause it, open the computer and do some research. And so it's an invitation for all of us because the illusion is if I learn more, I'll change. But that's not actually how it works. Taking massive action is what creates the change. Consuming massive amounts of information is what creates the pause. And so we get to be radically honest with ourselves that as entrepreneurs, most of us don't need more tools. We don't need more information. We don't need more strategies. What we actually need is the clarity of those items or needle movers that we get to execute, the confidence to believe that we can actually do it, and most importantly, the courage to apply the things that we already know and to do the things that we already have. And I think an easy way to remember this is that information will soothe our mind. but embodiment will rewire who we are. Information will soothe our mind, but embodiment will rewire who we are. And I'm going to keep using fitness as an example in this, but it applies anywhere. But I'm sure I'll use two examples. I'm sure everybody listening to this can remember the time where you were starting on social media, or you were ever going to send that first newsletter to your audience, or you're building your email list, or you were going to the gym. And we make it so much harder than it is. And we're afraid, and we don't want to do it, and we delay it, and we procrastinate. But then now, if we all think back to one of those moments, when we got done with the gym, we're like, man, I feel really a lot better. I'm going to keep going consistently. Or I sent that email and now I'm excited to send the next one. Why was I delaying this? There's something that happens when we commit to that massive action and we don't allow ourselves to fall in to the knowing trap. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because what I've learned is that no matter how much I love you, how much I stand for you, how much I coach you, how much somebody coaches me, how much you coach me, it doesn't matter how much that happens. None of us can inspire another person to actually take the action. We have to choose it on our own. But the more aware we become of these patterns or our default mechanisms or the way that we cope, truthfully, the faster we can call ourselves out on our own BS and realize that we're making choices even when we don't make a choice. And they're not from a place of fault or blame or guilt or shame. They're just from a place of invitation. It really is a barometer for us to check. Am I really taking the actions and being the person that's aligned with the goal or vision that I have for my life? Or am I convincing myself that I am because I'm just consuming more and more and more? And so I think the easiest way to recognize these things is to become aware of them. And so I have a 3-part framework that I'm going to share with you, which is really understanding the gap between knowing and becoming, because it's this cycle that we all kind of get caught up into. And I'm saying all of us, and I might be speaking, if you are the human that doesn't get caught into this, I love you, call me, reach out. I'd like to get some coaching from you. But I know for me, this is the cycle that I fall into. It's the cycle I see clients fall into. It's the cycle my friends fall into, because I don't think any of us are numb to this. I think this is what it means to be a human and to have free will and to set high goals or lofty goals and visions and to start executing them. And so the first thing you have is awareness. The second thing you have is avoidance. And the third thing you have is the action that never comes. So what is awareness? Awareness is when we recognize the pattern, right? We can see it. We become very aware of it. If you're familiar with the competency matrix, this is really how human beings grow and learn, right? They go from unaware to aware, aware to learning, and learning to mastery. I did a whole episode on this. But in awareness, we recognize the pattern. We know innately what's not working. We all know that we ignored our inbox for a week, or we didn't get back to those text messages, or we're telling everybody we need to make more money, but yet we haven't sent out invoices that people are looking for, or we haven't followed up on the ones that didn't come in, right? We know. We actually understand the cost. So the first phase is the awareness phase. The second phase that I just alluded to is the avoidance phase. We're like, oh, but it's okay. I'll just go make more. I'm going to go learn more. Or now's not the time, so I'm going to wait for the quote unquote right time. And what we do is we justify the lack of action and we label it, I'm processing. I'm feeling my way through it. I'm allowing myself to cope. I am really calling myself out right now. So the avoidance is where we start to really gaslight ourselves into thinking that it's processing, when at the end of the day, the thing that's still required, no matter how much we process, no matter how much we become aware of it, is action. So the first step of the cycle, and we should call it a spiral, is awareness. The second one is avoidance. And then that leads to inaction, or action that never comes. Because we'll get clarity of like, oh, we're going to go do this thing. But then we sabotage it when the time comes to actually integrate it. We'll make excuses. We'll reschedule calls. We'll cancel the calls. We'll set our plan of like, hey, tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for my walk. But then that comes and we hit snooze. So we literally sabotage when it's time, and we fall into the almost zone. Let's just call it the almost zone, where we're so close to breakthrough, where we have the clarity, where we have the confidence, where we have the courage. We're so close to that breakthrough, but we get stuck in the preparation. And then we're like, oh, I didn't do it. I didn't go for that walk this morning like I said I would. So then what do? We go back to the awareness pattern and we're like, oh man, I didn't do it again. Look, it's still not working. And then we move into the avoidance. We're like, okay, well, I have to change my schedule. I have to figure something out. Something didn't get me up. That workout was too hard. I'll try again tomorrow. And then the action that never comes happens again. And we get stuck in the almost zone. And the almost zone is death, in my opinion. It is horrendous. And I've shared a couple of examples just even in recording this, but I have hundreds of examples of where I knew it and I still didn't do it. I can use my weight as an example, which you know. And that one was hard because that took my son telling me I was overweight. That took me collapsing a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. I had an identity death inside of that because I knew I needed to change. I knew that I could be better, that I wanted to live a longer life. But I just got stuck in it. And the more frustrated I became, the more I judged myself, the more I hid from the world, the more I hid from myself. And the hardest part is it wasn't that I didn't know. It was that actually doing it would require me to lose something. And what I was losing was my identity. What I was losing was this illusion. The things that I had convinced myself is like, I don't deserve to be in shape. I don't deserve to be healthy. I packed on the pounds because nobody would pay attention to me. I wasn't willing to let go of that identity. And then I would even spiral even more. And I'd be like, well, yeah, look, you used to be a competitive athlete. You'll never be that way again. And I would convince myself in this spiral over and over and over that that was actually true. But none of it was true. But what I had to be willing to let go of was being right about that story that I was telling myself. Or even with my divorce, God bless my ex and my son's mother. I avoided very, very hard decisions for a long time out of fear. I avoided moving out of the house. And so I put us in a position where two people who didn't want to live together lived together because I was afraid of not seeing my son every day. I made up that I was a bad father, that I wouldn't be able to provide. Well, newsflash, moved out a long time ago. My son was happier. I was better able to support him and his mother. I was able to support myself, but what was I avoiding? I was avoiding alone time. I didn't know who I would be when I didn't have my son. I didn't know who I would be if I lived somewhere else. And I was clinging so hard onto this identity. Or we could go all the way back to when I built 7 years of one of the biggest food blogs, New York Times bestseller, #1 app, 500,000 to 1 million followers aggregated on social media. And I knew for years that that business was not supporting me, but I was so afraid to walk away. I was so scared that I sabotaged all of it until I had no other choice. And then I made that call and I gave it away to Josh Trent. And I said, I have to stop. But it wasn't because I chose it. It's because I was forced into it. And I just kept convincing myself if I could learn more, I could change this, I could hire this. And none of it ever came to fruition because I was just keeping myself stuck in that almost zone. And walking away from that is actually what unlocked my entire life's purpose and the career that I have now. But it required massive action. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know I'd have a podcast. I didn't know I'd be a consultant. I didn't know that I could teach people what I knew. But all of these stories are examples of the same thing that I'm talking about in this episode. That what do we do when we know better, but we still don't do better? We have to choose it. We have to recognize that we already know in our hearts and our minds and our souls, the clarity of like, oh yeah. And we do this all the time. Like, I should be doing this thing. I should have done this. Should is a shame-based word. What we should say is like, this is the thing I get to do, and I have to choose to do it, or I have to choose not to do it, and be honest with myself that I really don't want the result or want the goal on the other side. And what I have learned personally is that this isn't something that ever goes away. I think this is a part of the game that we consistently get to play because we always want to grow. We want to be better entrepreneurs. We want to be better leaders. We want to be better friends. We want to be better in our relationship. I think that that is one of the greatest gifts that God gave us, is this desire to be good, is this desire to achieve. But at every single one of those levels, just like Joseph Campbell talks about in The Hero's Journey, it requires a different version of ourselves. And once we integrate that version, we're not done. We actually start the process all over again. Or the podcast that I did with a friend on here called Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floors. Same thing with Erica. It was an incredible show, but this is just something we all get to be aware of. And so how do you apply this when you know this, when you're like, oh my God, that's me? Or like, George, you're not alone. I'm in the same spiral of almost as you are. And I also want to be clear before I give you some reflection questions. Just because I'm aware of some of the spirals that I'm in doesn't mean in other buckets I'm not spiraling up. There's places that I'm incredible now, incredible at some of the things I do. And I'm really happy and I'm excited about the progress and I stay committed to it and I keep going with it, like being a father or being a best friend to TJ or being with my incredible, incredible woman. I love those and I'm excited about those. But then there's some other things that are really close to the chest where I struggle with inconsistency, where I fall into the knowledge gap, where I avoid the embodiment. And so both things can be true at the same time. And this isn't anything to be upset about. This is nothing to judge about, to feel guilty about, to feel shame about. These are actually the things to feel excited about because they're the ingredients and the process and the recipe of becoming the best version of ourselves. And so what are a couple key questions that you can sit with? Question number one is, what's something that you've been working on? If you're just listening to this, I'm air quoting like crazy because I'm the master at this one, that you've been working on for an extended period of time. Maybe you've been working on it for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, but yet it is the same as it was when you started and it hasn't changed. So what are those things? List out 3 of them. We all have them. I have them. I still have it with my fitness. Did I get my weight off? Did I keep it off? Yeah, but you know what I stopped doing? I stopped going to the gym. So at minimum, I've been hitting my steps every day, but I am changing my identity to get back in the gym, to lift. I miss my muscles. I miss being able to do some of the things that I've done. No different than my social media presence, as I've made up that I can't do it all or have both. Not true. Same thing with events, as we're booking the next event dates now because I was in the almost zone. And I'm like, just pick the dates. We all have these awarenesses. So pick 3 of them. And then the second question, when you're looking at that list of 3, is what would actually shift in your life if you embodied what you already know to be true? Like if you actually looked at those things and you're like, I do have clarity. Now I just need the courage and the confidence to do this. And if I embodied this, what would actually change in my life? I'd have a better relationship because I walked away from the one I wasn't supposed to be in. I changed the way that the business is running and now I feel more excited to do it and serve people. I went for my walk every single day and I have more energy. I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I love what I see in the mirror. Like, what would actually shift in your life? Because my action step for you is to pick one pattern, one lesson, or one of those truths that you already know that you're aware of and take one embodied action on it in the next 24 hours. Not next week, not next month, like even today, the moment you listen to this. Like in one of those items, what is the thing that you can do today? And if you want, you can apply the wedge of expectations. What's your floor and ceiling? What's the most you want to commit to, but what's the minimum you can commit to so you can start to embody this practice? And I invite you to go. Because if you know you're out of alignment in an area, in a relationship, say the thing. You know that if you've been skipping your workouts, but you feel better when you do it, you get to go work out. You get to set the boundary. You get to cut the fluff. You get to take the action. And so ask yourself these questions during the day. If I fully embodied this thing, this belief, this item, this lesson, what would change in my life today? And at minimum, the greatest thing that would change is your perspective, which is the biggest difference. And what follows that consistently is the results that we all want that we get to pursue. And so the interesting thing about growth is growth doesn't ask if we know. It asks us if we're ready to take action on it. It asks us if we're ready to live it. Knowing is cheap. Embodiment, it costs something, but it's worth every bit of the price. Sometimes it costs your sleep when you're getting used to waking up early again. Sometimes it costs your tiredness as you're going for that walk and you're getting stronger, but it's worth it every single time. And so I'm going to say this, you don't need another podcast after this one. You just actually need to go do what you just felt in your gut or felt in your heart or felt in your head. And you can be mad at me. I'm mad at me too. But not really. I love me. And I love that I'm calling myself up by calling myself out. But this is your invitation to stop studying change and actually become change. And as cliche and cheesy as it sounds, there's no other way to get there. And I've realized that I used to call it cheesy and be like, oh, because it was right. And it was nothing more than an invitation for me. And so my invitation for you is that I love you. I appreciate you. And if this episode cracked something open for you, brought clarity for you, pass it on to somebody. Share it with a friend who is also tired of pretending that they're not ready. As my friend Angelique says, ready is a lie, and choose something together. And if you want to share it with me, shoot me a DM on Instagram. I would love to hear it. You can be mad at me. You can yell at me, but I'm going to tell you all mine too. And then I'm like, hey, here's what I'm working on. And that's how we all rise together. And so that's what I wanted to share today. So I hope you have the most beautiful day. Remember that relationships will always beat algorithms. I love you. And I'll either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, I'm out.